KJA Global Channel, The Political System and Me. Series 3, Institutions, Power, Rights, and Accountability. Episode 23, My Security and Police, Protection Without Fear. I learned early that security can mean two opposite things. In some places, security is the feeling that your child can walk home without fear, that you can sleep without listening for boots at the door, that you can report a crime and be protected, not punished, that your dignity is safe even when you are poor, different, unpopular, or alone. In other places, security is the feeling that danger wears a uniform, that you keep your eyes down, your documents ready, your explanations prepared, your fear hidden, because the smallest misunderstanding can become a catastrophe. Before this becomes an institutional question, it becomes a human experience. A mother wonders whether reporting violence will make her safer. A young person changes direction when an officer appears. A victim waits outside a station and wonders whether anyone will listen. A community learns that some complaints are investigated while others disappear. A political system is not truly measured by what it says about law and order. It is measured by what security feels like in an ordinary human body. Security is not a slogan. It is a lived relationship between the people and those authorized to use force. Can I be protected without being afraid? This episode is about security and policing as the everyday boundary between civilization and brutality. Police are supposed to be the shield between the citizen and harm. When that shield becomes a weapon, society becomes tense, suspicious, traumatized, and divided. It learns to live in survival mode. The system reveal is police authority, restraint, complaint, and oversight. Security is the state's most serious responsibility. It is also one of the state's most dangerous powers. In plain language, the hidden mechanism is police authority, restraint, complaint, and oversight. The difference between police and force helps define a civilization. Police exist to protect civilians inside civilian life. Force is a limited instrument governed by law. Protection requires service, restraint, professionalism, and accountability. Police are often the state's everyday face. Citizens may rarely meet a minister or judge, but they meet the state at a checkpoint, a station, a protest, a traffic stop, or a detention cell. When police act lawfully, the citizen learns that authority can protect. When police abuse power, the citizen learns that the state may be the threat. A political system must answer a basic question. Who is allowed to use force, for what purpose, under whose command, and under what restraints? The use of force is the most dangerous power any public institution holds. Without restraint, security becomes legalized violence. Force must be a last resort, not a first instinct. Lawful policing begins with legality. An officer must have a legal basis for stopping, searching, arresting, detaining, dispersing, or using force. Vague authority invites arbitrary power. It continues with necessity. Coercion should be used only when a legitimate objective cannot reasonably be achieved by a less harmful means. It requires proportionality. The level of force must match the actual threat and stop when the threat stops. It requires precaution and restraint. Planning, communication, distance, de-escalation, and medical support can prevent force from becoming inevitable. It also requires identification and records. Authority without a name, command trail, incident record, detention register, or evidence log becomes difficult to challenge. Security institutions are supposed to protect the vulnerable. Children, older people, victims of violence, minorities, poor communities, and people with little power to resist. The true test of police power is how it treats those least able to defend themselves. Public safety and accountability are not enemies. Accountability identifies misconduct, protects professional officers, and builds public cooperation. The analytical center of this episode is the rights chain. Right or legitimate interest. Law or constitutional rule. Responsible institution. Complaint or review. Hearing and evidence. Remedy. Enforcement. Right or legitimate interest asks what human claim is at stake. Life, safety, liberty, bodily integrity, equal protection, privacy, peaceful assembly, and protection from arbitrary arrest or torture. Law or constitutional rule asks where that claim is protected and where police authority is limited. Is the rule public, specific, accessible, and consistent with fundamental rights? Does emergency law contain clear limits, review, and an endpoint? Responsible institution asks who must act. An officer, commander, investigator, prosecutor, court, detention authority, or independent complaints body. Does that institution have the training, resources, independence, and lawful authority required? Complaint or review asks where a person can safely challenge misconduct. Is the route independent of the unit complained about? Can complaints be made confidentially, accessibly, and without retaliation? Hearing and evidence asks what record should exist and who examines it. Dispatch logs, lawful video, medical evidence, witness accounts, detention records, use of force reports, and command instructions may all matter. The process must test evidence fairly and give reasoned findings. Remedy asks what can repair the harm. Release from unlawful detention, medical care, protection, compensation, correction of a record, discipline, prosecution, or institutional reform. Enforcement asks who makes the remedy real. What happens if an order is ignored? Is there a deadline, monitoring process, sanction, or higher authority capable of compelling compliance? A broken policing outcome may begin far upstream. The visible harm may be an unlawful stop, excessive force, disappearance, death in custody, selective protection, or a complaint that vanishes. But the deeper failure may begin in an unjust law, vague command, poor training, hidden record, corrupted evidence, captured oversight body, or paper remedy. The rights chain prevents us from reducing a system failure to one personality. It identifies where law, capacity, evidence, review, remedy, or enforcement stopped working. When citizens and professionals can locate that break, criticism becomes more accurate and reform becomes more practical. For this episode, the principal mechanism is police authority, restraint, complaint, and oversight. The production graphic must make every link readable on a phone screen and label country-specific or proposed arrangements honestly. Under dictatorship, security and policing are shaped primarily by concentrated command. Information is restricted. Institutions answer upward. Law enforcement becomes selective. Political loyalty can replace professional duty. Surveillance, detention, and force may serve regime survival. Challenge may carry personal risk. Dictatorship may turn security institutions into instruments of control and teach police to treat criticism as danger. In a fragile democracy, formal rules may exist while patronage, unequal capacity, corruption, politicization, or weak enforcement makes protection inconsistent. Complaints bodies may lack investigators. Courts may issue orders that are not enforced. Old habits, loyalties, intimidation, and corruption networks may survive inside new laws and uniforms. In a functioning federal democracy, authority is constitutionally distributed, common rights remain enforceable, and several institutions can review harmful power. Local responsiveness, national standards, courts, legislatures, prosecutors, civilian reviewers, media, and communities can provide overlapping scrutiny. But the label alone proves nothing. Decentralized policing can reproduce local prejudice or capture. Multiple agencies can create gaps in responsibility. No democratic design is self-executing. Comparison is a method of judgment, not a slogan or a ranking exercise. Compare who decides, how authority was obtained, whether records are reviewable, whether affected people participate, and whether remedy and consequence for abuse exist in practice. Democratic policing must survive weak leaders, political disagreement, emergencies, and changes of government. The minimum guardrails are 1. Legality, necessity, and proportionality. Police powers and use of force rules must be public, specific, rights-respecting, and equally applied. Force must stop when necessity ends. 2. Training, identification, and accurate operational records. Officers need practical training in de-escalation, lawful arrest, evidence, detention safeguards, first aid, and non-discrimination. Commands, arrests, searches, injuries, weapons use, and detention must leave reliable records. 3. Independent complaints and investigation. Serious allegations cannot be investigated only by the same unit accused of wrongdoing. Investigators need independence, evidence access, witness protection, resources, and referral power. 4. Civilian, judicial, and legislative oversight. Civilian authorities set policy and budgets. Courts review legality. Legislatures examine laws, spending, patterns of harm, and institutional performance. Legitimate confidentiality must not become impunity. 5. Remedy and consequence for abuse. Victims need accessible remedies and officers need fair process. Proven misconduct requires proportionate consequences, including command or institutional responsibility where evidence supports it. Reform must address the rule, training, record, incentive, or command failure that enabled abuse. These safeguards work as a system. A published rule without an independent reviewer can become theater. Oversight without records cannot see. Participation without safety can expose people. Complaint systems without independence protect institutions rather than citizens. And a remedy without enforcement does not repair the harm. Global relevance. Across political labels, ask who decides, what limits force, what is recorded, who can complain safely, who investigates, and whether a real remedy exists. Myanmar relevance. Do not treat one organization, community, security actor, administrative body, or proposed arrangement as the whole country. Separate existing law and institutions from interim systems, local practices, negotiated proposals, and future designs. State honestly whether an institution operates nationally, operates only in some areas, is proposed, or remains aspirational. Use ordinary experience only where it clarifies the mechanism, such as a checkpoint, missing complaint record, unsafe detention, or victim unsure where to report. Protect identities, locations, operational details, witnesses, families, and confidential records. Here is the civic practice for this episode. See and ask. Ask what fearful security does to a human being, including to you. Does it change where people walk, what they say, whom they trust, and whether they seek help? Verify. Examine one use of force rule, complaint mechanism, detention safeguard, oversight mandate, or public report. Identify the authority, responsible institution, required record, complaint route, reviewer, remedy, and evidence of enforcement. ACT. Map the public complaint and oversight path for one police function. Keep identities, locations, operational details, and confidential evidence protected. Do not convert an educational exercise into a public accusation. Review. Record whether you can name the responsible institution, evidence, safeguard, or remedy, and one safe next step. Success is not visibility. It is identifying evidence, responsibility, a safeguard, and the safest practical action. When policing is trusted, the state becomes lighter, not heavier. It does not need constant intimidation to maintain order. The safest societies are often those where police power is most answerable. Accountability produces restraint. Restraint protects dignity. Dignity encourages cooperation. Cooperation strengthens safety. And safety grounded in trust produces stability. Protection without fear is not a romantic dream. It is the highest form of civilization. It is also the necessary condition for the next chapter. The military, the police, and the monopoly of force must be placed under democratic control if a society is to live free. The principle to carry forward is this: security is the state's most serious responsibility. Ask yourself, what part of policing and public security have I treated as normal even though it should be visible, answerable, and correctable? Power must be restrained, distributed, and answerable. Protection must be lawful, professional, and free from fear. In the next episode, we continue with my military and the monopoly of force. Civilian supremacy. Continue the playlist, use the worksheet, and keep the practice safe, truthful, and disciplined. The system shapes our lives. Our participation shapes the system.
Subscribe.
Learn. Participate. Shape the future. KJA. Knowledge justifies authority.